Donald Trump was just humiliated after Fox News turned on him in a brutal new bombshell statement. In a shocking move, the network called out his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, for trying to ban the press entirely. What was meant to silence reporters has now completely backfired, sparking outrage across Washington and leaving both Trump and Hegseth scrambling to contain the fallout. So stick around to see Fox News' stunning takedown of Trump's administration, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. So, Pete Hegseth has had a very rough time with reporters since his very first day in Washington. They have constantly been picking up leaks on him, exposing him for sending military intel to his friends and family, and just this past month, relentlessly tore him to shreds over his humiliating speech to our generals and admirals.
In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O.
Well, apparently, after months of the press pointing out just how terrible he is at his job, Pete Hegseth is now melting down by trying to block the media from getting anywhere near him. And Hegseth isn't the only Republican feuding with reporters this week either. At the same time that Hegseth is losing it in the Pentagon, Donald Trump is freaking out on ABC for humiliating J.D. Vance this weekend. As you may have seen, ABC anchor George Stephanopoulos tried to interview J.D. Vance on Sunday, and after he kept dodging questions about Tom Homan taking bribes, ABC just cut him off on live TV.
George, I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next, we'll be right back.
And after being shoved off the air by ABC, Vance must have just gone running and crying to Donald Trump because now this week he's refusing to even listen to questions from any of ABC's reporters.
Mr. President,
Your ABC fake news.
Mr.
President,
First of all, congratulations.
I don't take questions from ABC fake news. After what you did with Stephanopoulos to the Vice President of the United States, I don't take questions from ABC fake news. Brian, go ahead.
Yes.
Donald Trump is completely ignoring ABC just because they hit J.D. Vance with a few tough questions. And if that sounds like an embarrassing move by a politician, just wait until you hear Hegseth's new plan for the media. You see, Pete Hegseth is now planning on going much further than just dodging people's questions. He actually plans on banning reporters from coming anywhere near him. In his new list of rules, reporters are required to wear badges that indicate that they are reporters if they go anywhere near the Pentagon. The press must be escorted around the halls of the Pentagon at all times, and to follow it up, certain areas of the military institutions will be off limits to the press. Now, if that all sounds pretty reasonable, that's because those were already the rules to get into the Pentagon anyway. But there's one more rule that is sparking all of the controversy. Pete Hegseth has said that reporters who are allowed to go into the Pentagon or other military facilities cannot report on anything without getting explicit approval from him or his direct team. And this means that Pete Hegseth will have full control over anything that the news wants to say, and if news outlets don't sign a pledge to follow all of these rules, Hegseth has promised to remove them completely from the Pentagon. Hegseth's rules would take full control over news organizations, and as you can imagine, they are already calling this out for the extremely authoritarian move that it is.
Exactly as how you laid it out there. It's like Pete Hegseth wants these reporters to be North Korean-style propagandists where they go on the air and they only repeat government talking points. They parrot what the government is telling them is okay to say, and they're not permitted to do anything else. They are basically saying the act of reporting, the act of getting the real story behind the scenes is a criminal act. And they're asking reporters to acknowledge that, to sign a document acknowledging that. Obviously, no news organization is going to go along with this. And so basically every single news organization has, including Fox News, has said, no, thank you, Pete Hegseth, we'll just leave the Pentagon. And so what he's really doing is expelling the press from the Pentagon. And I just cannot stress how hypocritical this is, coming from a man who talked about how liberals want safe spaces because they're so emotional and they can't stand scrutiny. And here he is constructing a massive safe space around the Pentagon.
MSNBC's guest was spot on there, calling out Hegseth for not wanting to regulate the media but force them out of the Pentagon. After all, what news company would agree to only talk about whatever Pete Hegseth told them that they could? And while we're already seeing dozens of news companies refuse to sign up for Hegseth's new rules, no one was expecting one of the strongest rebukes to come from his own former network. After working for Fox News for years as a host, they had this to say about Hegseth's new rules for the media. Today, we join virtually every other news organization in declining to agree to the Pentagon's new requirements, which would restrict journalists' ability to keep the nation and the world informed of important national security issues. We will continue to cover the US military, as each of our organizations has done for many decades, upholding the principles of a free and independent press. That was a joint statement from several major news companies like ABC, CBS, CNN, and of course, Fox News. Hegseth's new rulebook backfired so hard that Fox News and CNN are releasing joint statements saying that his rules would threaten the principles of a free press. And it wasn't just these four. Dozens of media outlets have vowed to not sign Pete Hegseth's pledge, from the New York Times to even the right-wing network Newsmax. After making big threats, Pete Hegseth now has to decide if he wants to follow through on banning all of these companies, including Fox News, by the end of this week. And while we'll have to wait to see what he does, his constant attacks against reporters makes it sound like that the Pentagon will just be locked down very soon. I mean, just today, when he was asked about virtually every news company refusing these new rules, all Pete had to say was that the press was out of control and wandering all over the Pentagon, which just is not true.
So you would think that the Pentagon press corps of all press corps would be front and center across the board on wanting to give credit to the president for forging this kind of peace, and instead what they want to talk about is a policy about them, which simply says maybe the policy should look like the White House or other military installations where you have to wear a badge that identifies that you're press, or you can't just roam anywhere you want. It used to be, Mr. President, the press could go anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the Pentagon.
And while Pete Hegseth will continue to spread lies about the press as the fight continues on, Trump himself, who is constantly hating on reporters, is in full support of this move. In fact, just today, Trump even defended Hegseth by saying that having reporters at the Pentagon gets in the way of world peace.
Mr. President, will you consider removing new restrictions on the press that report at the Pentagon? And have you spoken to Secretary Hegseth about this?
I have, yeah. Well, he's finding, I think I can speak for him, I'll let him speak for himself, but I think he finds the press to be very disruptive in terms of world peace and maybe security for our nation.
Having people report on what public officials do all day is not a threat to world peace. The only thing that news outlets are threatening is to continue to expose how people like Pete Hegseth have no business being in our government. That is why he wants full control over what they can and can't report on, and why we might just see him ban dozens of outlets from the Pentagon by the end of this week. And this is a move so authoritarian that even Fox News is standing up against it. After constant battles with the media, Pete Hegseth is just trying to ban it entirely. And let's not kid ourselves here. If he can get away with this in the Pentagon, then I'm willing to bet that the White House is next. And it's not that these Republicans don't want tough questions, although that is part of it. They just don't want to have anyone holding them accountable whatsoever. So let me know your thoughts on Hegseth's promise to ban the media from the Pentagon this week. And as always, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more.